What is happening, guys? How are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking my favorite subject in the world. We're talking Star Wars. So, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order releases in just about 1 month's time on November 15th. And at this point, it's pretty much my most anticipated game for the rest of the year, especially with the recent delay of Doom Eternal from November 22nd to March 20th next year, 2020, which was a very tragic situation, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and that's okay. But like I said, that does clear up room for me personally to be completely invested in Jedi Fallen Order, because most of you guys know I'm the biggest Star Wars fan. It's like my favorite thing in the world. I worship all of the George Lucas era 6 films. I like the new sequels and stuff. I think they're all good movies. And so, on the whole, Star Wars is kind of what I live and breathe as far as like my nerdy sort of passions. And Star Wars video games for decades were great and something that everyone loved and was one of the most prolific kind of movie license products in the gaming industry. And LucasArts had a very strong reputation for mostly making really good Star Wars games. There were obviously duds here and there throughout the decades, but more often than not, they turned out pretty good. However, as most of us know, in this current generation, Star Wars games have been almost completely smothered out of existence, at least quality Star Wars games. As most of us know, we've only really had the two Battlefront games, the two EA Battlefront games, in this kind of current 8th generation. You know, mostly due in part to the fact that when George Lucas retired and he sold Lucasfilm to Disney, which I think was kind of a mistake overall, even though I like Disney, one of the first things Disney did as an entity was they closed down LucasArts, and then in 2013, only a year after the sale, they signed an exclusive deal with Electronic Arts for 10 years to have exclusive access to video game licensing rights. And they've basically done piss all for the most part with that. Like I said, just making the two Battlefront games. And I enjoyed the first Battlefront game enough for what it was when it was out, but obviously that game had a lot of problems and was not a complete game. They admitted it wasn't a complete game, and they monetized all the stuff that they cut out of the game just to release it in time for Episode 7, so that was an issue. Battlefront 2, this game right here, is a tricky one because honestly, like, if we look at that game right now, it's actually pretty great, honestly. It's a fun game. They've got so much content in there, and they didn't monetize any of that content. And the tricky part is, obviously, they initially were monetizing that content, and it's only because they got exposed weeks before the game released, and they were backed into a corner to have to pull out the monetization and offer all of this content and all of these updates for free. So their initial motivation was kind of bad and scummy and typical EA nonsense. However, in retrospect, regardless of that, the final product we have and all of the updates as it exists today makes a fantastic Star Wars game. So it really kind of has like a sort of give and take, a light side and a dark side, if you will, as far as what encompasses Star Wars Battlefront 2. But, again, the main problem exists where all we've had are those two games. Where has been everything else? Normally, Star Wars games, especially in an era where Star Wars movies are happening, Star Wars games are normally all over the place. Go back to the prequel era between 99 and 2005, and even right before and right after those years, when the prequel trilogy was releasing, there were so many Star Wars games on the GameCube and the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox and the PC, and like the Game Boy Advance and the DS. Like, it was insane. There was so much Star Wars stuff. It was great. And so with that little bit of a recap behind us, that brings us to right here and now, where we know the next Star Wars game from Electronic Arts is coming up soon, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which, like I said, I am incredibly excited for. And the kind of concept that made me want to have this conversation about this game, one is the fact that the press just this week had a huge preview kind of blowout of this game, and everyone's talking about it and writing about it and making videos about it, so there's a lot of stuff we're going to discuss. But also the fact that it's apparently previewing so good, it might be a game that's in the position to kind of save Star Wars games, because I would argue that right now, the very concept of Star Wars video games does need saving because of the death grip of Electronic Arts, this really shady video game company that has this stranglehold on the franchise right now because of Disney's very poor business decision. And so with this game coming out and it previewing so well, like I said, I just wanted to talk about how it could actually save Star Wars games, and the future might actually start to look really bright after this release. So, like I said, this week, all of the big press media outlets in the gaming industry had a chance to go hands-on and preview the heck out of this game. Tons of people who I follow were sharing pictures of them on social media, I guess being flown to somewhere by EA, or at least they flew themselves to somewhere for EA to be able to be hands-on for like what seems like a full day, you know, very common stuff. Everyone is very excited to play this game, and what's even better is everyone's account of this game, however much time they had hands-on with it, they are glowing reviews. Everyone is saying this game is absolutely spectacular, from the biggest to the smallest sites who had a chance to play this game thanks to the preview. It's very exciting. People are losing their minds for this game, and we needed this to be the case with this Star Wars game because of that whole history I gave you with how everything's been really bad and very bleak as far as the Star Wars video game situation. So seeing all this great information come out is really fantastic. I'm going to read from you a snippet from IGN's preview, and this was done by Brian Altano. My man, Altano. I'm a huge fan of Brian Altano. Really, really great guy. And he had a whole huge, great article write-up, and I'm going to link it below for you guys to read. But here's a couple quick snippets. He kind of gives this quick rundown of all of these things that this game does and kind of comparing all of the different little meta systems within it to other well-known and very popular video games, and it's extremely exciting. So here's just a couple of things that he said about the game. When it comes to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, he writes, "It's got the 3D map from Metroid Prime that looks like if AutoCAD designed building plans showed breakable walls and health upgrades. It's got the combat from God of War or other similarly visceral action games, just with lightsabers cauterizing decapitated limbs. It's got the dungeons from 3D Zelda games with lengthy, inventive puzzle sequences and mini-boss fights. It's got the bonfires from Soulsborne games, complete with the retrieval system in place when some nasty enemy murders you. It's got the traversal from Uncharted and Tomb Raider, complete with huge walls to scale, ropes to swing on, and icy tunnels to slide through. It's got skill trees, shortcuts to unlock, unlockable character and droid skins, lightsaber parts to collect, and just holy crap, that is just so much stuff. There are so many amazing comparisons being drawn there, I don't even know what to do with myself. I mean, right off the bat, the comparison he makes with his opinion from his preview was to my favorite game of all time, Metroid Prime. Granted, it's the map system, you know, using that 3D AutoCAD kind of design of the map system, which was very new and inventive when it came out in Metroid Prime in 2002, and of course all the other Prime games continued to use that system, and we have seen it used in some other games as well. It's not like Jedi Fallen Order is like the only game to borrow from that. Dead Space is a game that jumps out of my, you know, into my brain as one of those games, but it's still exciting to hear, right? To know that that's gonna sort of be how we organically study the areas that we're in and get an idea of where to go, because I think one of the things that might also be leading to is the concept of the kind of Metroidvania backtracking element only in a 3D Star Wars action game, which is fantastic. He compares it to Zelda with the dungeons and the puzzle solving. He compares it to God of War with the visceral combat, which is so very exciting. Tomb Raider, due to the scaling of the walls and the raiding of tombs. I mean, the list goes on and on. Even Soulsborne, when he made the Soulsborne comparison, that's partly really where my heart kind of started to sing, you guys, because I love the idea of the Star Wars equivalent of a bonfire system, the way, you know, Bloodborne uses the lanterns and Dark Souls uses the bonfires, and maybe you're resetting your enemies with that. I don't know if they're doing that, but he talks about the retrieval system, and so I don't know, man. All of this stuff is just pretty darn exciting. And so in the right here and now, 1 month before this game comes out, with this preview behind us and everyone just talking it up online, and it sounding very exciting and very good, we're at an interesting precipice because, of course, even though it all looks and sounds great, we're still dealing with an EA game, and we're still dealing with an EA Star Wars game. And as we know, they've not had the best track record with the 2 Star Wars games that they've made so far. And so we have to wait this last month, and we have to see if this game really turns out to deliver the way it's been promised. They've promised it's a single-player only game. They've promised there's going to be no extra monetization and loot boxes and microtransactions. And that all sounds great. And that's what we want this game to be. And so we have to now wait this last month and see, once this game finally releases, are they delivering on this promise? Will this game feel complete? Will this game be devoid of like scummy monetization practices? Will it be the true single-player adventure experience that we all want it to be? All signs are pointing to yes, and EA and Visceral, the developer behind it, have vocally stated it's going to be this way. And so if it turns out to be this way, this is going to be the best Star Wars game in over a decade, you guys. That is very exciting. And it's a super important release because not only have Star Wars games been suffering, but Star Wars Episode 9, a movie that 10 years ago we thought we would never even see, releases in just 2 months. You guys, like the final Skywalker saga film is coming out soon. Now, I have a lot of opinions on that because I don't think that Episode 9 was intended to be the final Skywalker saga film. I think because of Disney's sloppy mishandling of rolling out the sequels is kind of what's changed their direction, and they're now making this the final film, and that's a whole different movie-related conversation that I really need to just make a darn Star Wars YouTube channel about and just kind of discuss that stuff ad nauseum. I'm not going to do that here. The point is, with the new movie coming out, and an important one being Episode 9, they also want the game that's going to precede it by a couple of weeks to also deliver. They need that positive press big time, especially with how Star Wars Episode 8 and Battlefront 2 worked out, because there was huge controversies between both Battlefront 2 and Star Wars Episode 8 at the same time, and so it really put the Star Wars brand in a world of hurt the past 2 years, unfortunately. So this game has to deliver. And so if Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order does truly deliver, and it's everything that these companies have been promising us and everything that these previews are telling us, could it be responsible for saving Star Wars? And I can't say yes, because it's only 1 out of 3 games, and it's only 3 games over the course of the past 6-7 years. But I would say it's a damned good first step. If this game turns out to be the game we want, it shows that EA is capable of finding a capable team to develop a game, and apparently being hands-off with their scummy business practices, and hopefully hands-off with the development, and they just let the Lucasfilm Story Group and the Lucasfilm teams work with Respawn. Earlier I did say Visceral, and obviously that's a different canceled game. To work with Respawn to make sure that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order turned out to be the actual game we wanted. It shows that maybe they learned from their mistakes with Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2, and that they can take this Star Wars brand and hopefully shepherd it in the right directions. Now, we do know that there are other Star Wars games being made behind the scenes, and we need to wait to see what those are going to turn into. Honestly, the game that was Visceral Studios' game, we know was handed off to a different team internally, and that they're doing something else with that. So the jury is still out on future projects, but we know that A, Jedi Fallen Order looks great, and that B, there are other Star Wars games they're working on currently. And so if they truly have learned these lessons and they're first applying it to Jedi Fallen Order, will they then apply it to the following games that they're making? I'm hoping so. What I will be honest with you guys is, I'll tell you this, I do think that the next Star Wars game that they're working on, the big one that was Visceral Studios games, that's now something else, was the ragtag that's now being turned into something else. I firmly do believe that's going to be some sort of online and multiplayer focused game. It might be an attempt for them to recapture what they did with Apex Legends and do something similar in the Star Wars universe. I hope that doesn't mean it would be a free-to-play first-person shooter in the Star Wars universe, because that would not be exciting. I would give it a shot, but it's not really what I want. If they did something more like they were trying to make like a Titanfall or a Destiny experience in the Star Wars universe and make it good, we would know that some monetization would come along with it, but I do believe there are good ways to monetize certain kinds of online games. And the last company that I should be trusting to do that right is Electronic Arts. But to be fair, they did make Titanfall and Titanfall 2. And Titanfall 2 was an amazing game. And so the point I'm trying to make is, let's wait and see. If Jedi Fallen Order delivers, let's wait and see, no matter what they're doing with their next Star Wars game, even if it's some sort of games as a service thing or some sort of online focused thing, let's wait and see if they're going to continue to take positive steps. I don't have much faith in EA to do so, but because I love and believe in the Star Wars brand so much and I want good Star Wars video games so much, I'm going to at least give them the benefit of the doubt coming off of a Jedi Fallen Order that is a good game, to see if they can do the right things with that next title. I expect it to be online, but I'm going to just hope upon hope that they can do the right things, because it seems like they're capable of doing the right things with Jedi Fallen Order. So let's see if they keep this trend going. So those are my feelings, and that's what's going on right now with Jedi Fallen Order, coming off of this great preview that everyone on the internet is just yakking about and saying, oh my god, this game is so great, it's like Dark Souls, it's like Zelda, it's like Metroid. It's like, okay, you're listing off every game and every franchise that everyone in gaming loves and adores. So obviously that's going to make us all excited for a hot new Star Wars game. Obviously the jury's still out if it's going to deliver and how accurate this stuff is, but like I said, I read from Brian Altano's preview, and it's not like I know him personally, but I tend to trust him. I like I like IGN well enough, and I do very much like Brian Altano. I don't think that they would lie or blow smoke up our skirts. So I tend to trust what he's saying. He knows video games and he knows Star Wars, you know? So I feel really good about what he said and what all these other previews are saying. Everyone's saying, oh my God, it's great. It's like all these thousands of other games. And so let's wait and see, man. Right now, I'm pumped. I'm excited. I said on Twitter earlier this morning that I was able to book a week of PTO for the week that this game comes out, which is extremely exciting. I get a lot of PTO throughout the year, and I tend to save it up a lot of times, and I happen to have a bunch of time to spare, so it's like, well, hell, I'm not going anywhere this year, so why don't I just take a week of my remaining PTO and just use it for the week Star Wars comes out? So I'm going to try to power through that game in the first week, man, and just really dive into it. It's very exciting times. A good Star Wars game is just what we need right now. Not only for Star Wars video games, but just for Star Wars as a whole, for the Star Wars brand and the Star Wars name. It's been a weird, rocky time since George Lucas retired, and I know that, you know, he was even controversial to some people near the end because a lot of people didn't like the prequel trilogy, and it's like, that's fine, it's whatever. But I love George. He and his movies are the reason I fell in love with Star Wars in the first place, because he and his movies are Star Wars. Undisputable, undebatable. And so it's been really strange without his guidance. And although they've made some pretty okay movies, I like episodes 7 and 8. You know, I know they're controversial, but I like them. I don't love them, but I like them. And so, I don't know. And the fandom's been so split and divided. I just want to see everything start to come together and coalesce again. So hopefully Jedi Fallen Order delivers. Hopefully episode 9 delivers, which I very much expect it to. Fingers crossed. So I guess we'll see. At this point, I'm just yakking and gabbing. So tell me what you guys think. What do you think of the preview? Are you excited for Jedi Fallen Order? Are you not? Are you going to give EA a little bit of faith, or are you just completely writing them off? Which I understand if so. Whatever you feel, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.